Hello, I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. This is the second episode in the series of videos that will go over a lot of my blueprints. I'm using a separate save that I call my Blueprint Playground. This has every advanced game setting turned on, making this effectively creative mode. I want to show off how these are made, in case you want to make your own or edit these ones to fit your needs. In the first episode, I covered the blueprints for smelters and constructors. Today, I'm going to go over the two input machines, foundries, and assemblers. All of these blueprints are free to use, and the link to the Google Drive is in the description. Before we get into the machines, I wanted to quickly run through the 2 to 5-way splitting and kind of the limitation that it has. For the first three, your limitation is the belt speed. So if I have 780 coming in, which as we all know, that's the most you can have on a belt currently. This is going to split it evenly, 390 and 390. Doing a 3-way split, same thing, we're limited by the belt speed. And if we do it 3 ways with the most, you've got 260 on each belt. Doing a 4-way split, same thing, 780 is our limit. And we'll end up with, at most, 195 on each of the 4. Now, a 5-way split has a limit of 650. So as I talked about in the last video, because you're inputting an initial amount, you put it into a merger, it then goes into a splitter. So if we had 650, it would cap out this belt right here at 780, and that's why this has that limitation. So to quickly kind of run through it, half of it splits here, half of it splits here. Now if we split it 3 ways, we can get 130 on each of these. And since for a 5-way split to work, you need 1 of the 6 splits to go back into that merger, this is the most you can do on one single belt being split 5 ways. I just wanted to show this off real quickly so that you know what the limitation of a 5-way split is. I've got a bunch of the blueprints laid out, so let's start with the 2 split. So just like with the splitters and mergers, we've just got a splitter in the front, merger in the back. The difference is now that we have 2 inputs to deal with, I just have the splitters stacked on top of each other, and then I've got this short lift being able to get your nice right angle going straight into there. And I'll show you how to make these in just a second. So with the assemblers, because they're kind of big, if I have the opportunity, I like to spread them out. And so this is centered on 2 foundations. So since each one is centered like that, the bounding box for the entire thing isn't a completely full 4x4. However, the way you would place these, the way I place them, it would end up basically taking up a full 4x4 area. But if you were going to do more than that, then I would make them a little bit more compact. So having a second version isn't a bad idea either. With the foundries, I did make them a little bit closer together because they're a little bit smaller and it just seems a little bit more fitting. But if you wanted to spread them out, I sure don't blame you. I like being able to see everything move around. And with the first couple groups of machines, I decided to make a compact version just to show off. And this is about as compact as I could make it without anything clipping egregiously, in my opinion. So I just have the splitters right up against the edge, and then I placed the machines as close as I could get and still be able to connect it with the nice right angles. They're also spaced out about as close as you can get them because of where the input is. And then I did the same thing on the backside. I placed the merger as close as I could to where this is still getting the nice right angle. I'm sure you could get them a little bit more compact and even have them right up next to each other if you were willing to just put the splitter, I think, in front of one of the 2 inputs, and then it just be asymmetrical instead of symmetrical. But I'm kind of partial to this look. So let me show you how I did the short lifts real quick. So with these, it's real easy. With any of the machines, what you want to do is take a conveyor pole, or you could use the stackable, which works really well because then you don't have to, it's less clicks. So what I want is to have a gap of 3. That's how big lifts are. So if I come out to here, if I connect to this, as soon as I turn it, it looks like it's disappeared, but you see the arrows are facing the correct way. When I spin it around, it's through the floor, but when I go like this, it turns blue, and that's how you make a short lift. So depending on how far out you make this connection is how much of the kind of accordion you'll see. You've got a few different options. It'll snap. I think that's about as far as it will actually make the connection. Yeah. Any farther and it's too far and you won't actually connect it. So with the assembler, let's see, from the edge of the building, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 3 meters is how far you can go out, but you could even do 2 if you wanted. And it's just going to be kind of flush on the machine, which is a pretty nice look in my opinion. But kind of just depends on how much space you need or what the look you're going for. But there is another option. If you don't want to mess with that, you can just add another splitter, delete this one, and then that would just be the normal height of a lift if you wanted to avoid having to make these short ones. Another option that's obviously really easy, and I use this, the larger majority of my buildings right now are using this style because I was just kind of lazy in the beginning. Instead of having to make the lifts, I just did this. So with these, it's nice and easy if you get the spacing just right. So with these, I believe they're both moved 1 meter over from being directly in the center, and that will give you enough space to be able to do just straight right angles right into mergers or splitters. If they're right next to each other, this will be a little bit harder, or you're going to have to off-center it. So if you didn't want to mess with the lifts, you could really easily just use the lifts. I really don't mind. It looks just fine to me. But after a while, I kind of wanted to make all the blueprints look a little bit more uniform, and so I'm switching to this style. Alright, moving on to the 3-way split. Not too complicated. We're still just dealing with 1 splitter for each of the inputs in the front, and then we've just got the 1 merger here in the back. So again, this blueprint is going to be taking up a full 4x4 area. So this one does take up the full space. It goes from middle to middle. So if you were going to place these next to each other, you would actually want them to be spaced out 1 meter. If you use default mode, you hit Control and they'll snap next to each other, or you can hit R and they'll go into blueprint mode. Either way, get it to the right place, hit H to lock it, and then just hit one of the arrow keys to move it over that 1 meter. And that's how you'd be able to line up multiples of the 3s. And with the Foundries, pretty much an identical setup. And then I've also got the compact versions that I'll be uploading to the Google Drive as well. With these ones, I did the same thing where I started with the splitters as close as I could to the edge of the blueprint machine, trying to just get everything as close as I could, and then just kind of messed with the distance to find out basically how far I could get them with still putting this not too, hopefully, to me this isn't too much clipping. Obviously, like, the edges kind of merge together, but in my opinion that's totally fine. So that's about as smashed together as I could get them where I felt it was still reasonable. And then same thing with the backside. You could, I think, get this slightly closer, yeah, because I have these split into 2. I just don't like the look of when it's like smashed into the machine and I can't see that belt. If I ever need to change it, or there's something wrong with it, like it's just not feeding in there, it just takes me so long to notice when I can't see the belt moving or the everything being stopped on there or whatnot. So even if it's only a 1 meter gap, I prefer to be able to see the belt. And then the same thing with the assemblers, because they're a little bit longer. This one is just over 3 foundations in length. But with the 3-way splits for both of these, the next thing is you can push them up right next to each other because there still is enough space to be able to do all the right angles and everything. And you'll probably notice with the smelters and constructors, I had a 4-way split blueprint saved, but with these ones I don't. And the reason is, since I can't fit 4 of either of these types of machines in the blueprint, at least not right next to each other like I'm setting these up, it's easiest just to have the 2s and be able to place as many of those next to each other if you're just doing any even number. So if I needed 4 foundries, I would just line up 2 of these together. If I needed 6, I would do 2 of the 3s, or if I needed 8, I would just place 4 of these next to each other. And then what I can do is I'll make sure that the edge of the splitters is right on the edge of a foundation. And then that way I know I can place these right here in this first half of the foundation. And it's just going to be able to make that right angle. So if I needed 4 foundries or assemblers, this is basically what I do. And then you can do the same thing with the mergers. With these, because I picked the compact one, normally I would just have it come out to the edge, but with the compact ones, I was trying to make them as small as possible. You just need to make sure the edge of one lines up with the edge of the next one. And onto the 5-way split. So I'm basically using this layout just stacked twice on top of each other because we've got the 2 inputs. So as long as you line up one splitter with one side, the other one with the other, you kind of get this little pattern where they overlap. I think it's really cool. I love the way it looks when you've got all of the parts moving around. In making these videos, I decided to change up my blueprints, and honestly, I'm really happy for it. So I'm going to be switching my blueprints out that I've been using on my load balance playthrough for these new ones. And the reason being is it just cuts down on the amount of things I need to add. And in general, I just think it makes it a whole lot easier. So the thing that I needed to change, as opposed to my old ones, is these ones no longer have the outputs. So I don't have the mergers already set up. But I think that's okay. I think out of everything, that is by far the easiest thing to complete the blueprint. I would much rather have this as complete as possible. So in my old blueprint, it was kind of like my 7-way smelter split where I didn't have the 2 mergers all in the front. So I had to remember to add those. And then that means I needed to add these connections and these connections along with the connections to join the 2 blueprints there and there. So with the new ones, what I have is this is identical to the way I have the constructors blueprinted, where they kind of overlap. But doing it this way means that I only need to connect. Oh, I can't. Since that blueprint and that blueprint, you can kind of see. The only thing that's not here in the blueprints are these 2 belts. So these are the only 2 things that I need to add to connect the 2 blueprints. So let me show you. So the easiest way to place it is if we start with A, I know that the middle of these mergers and splitter right here, that's the dead center of the whole thing. So if I wanted to center them there, I can go ahead and place that. If I hold down E, I can switch to all of the ones in this subcategory. So if I go to 5 assemblers B, I can now find this. What you want to do is you want to make sure that the middle of this machine, so like the ladder right here, is lined up with this splitter. So that will ensure that everything is even. And then we just need to take these belts, connect those 2, and there we go. So since these blueprints are generic, there's no recipe set. So if we go in here and pick, let's see, this is a good recipe. Okay. So if we were going to be using it for quick wire stators, the quick wire is needed in a pretty large amount. So if you were just going to place one of these, then I would just place it, change the recipes, and just leave it generic. If, say, you needed, 60 assemblers, so you're going to have to place this 12 times, what you may want to do is place down a blueprint designer, load up the blueprints. You remember there's A and B for something like this. And then go through and change the belts, because with this one you would need to change some, since the quick wire you need 60. So the very first belt on all of these is totally fine to be Mark 1 all the way across. So everything out of these last splitters, Mark 1. But these sets of belts right here and here leading into those last splitters are going to need to be much higher. If these are all needing to be 60 each, that means we would need to use a Mark III, because these are going to need to have 180 on each of those. If these are both 180, that means these need to be 360, so we're going to need to change those to Mark IV. So depending on the recipe and how many machines you place, it can save you a lot of time, effort, and hassle in the long run. The nice thing with the blueprints, if you did decide to do that, and I placed Foundries down instead, so we'll just say solid ingot, because it would still have the same thing. If you had 40 for each of those inputs, that means that second set of belts right here, those are going to need to be Mark II, because 40, 40, and 40 would be 120. So I would want to change this one right here on both of these. And then if I had my solid steel ingot set for both of them, then what I would want to do is then probably add in solid steel, or, you know, change the name in some way. Now, when I save this, the nice thing is I didn't change the name. I still have my 5 Foundries A and B, but now I have 5 Foundries A solid steel. So it just adds another one as soon as you change the name in the slightest. Also meaning if you name it something incorrectly and you try to update it, you're going to have to go back through, hit edit, go to the cog, and then remove blueprint. And then that way you can actually get it out of here. And here are all of the blueprints that I'll be uploading into the Google Drive in case you want to take a look at any of these. And that'll do it for this video. I hope this inspires you to load balance some of your own blueprints. If you do use some of the ones I've provided, I hope they serve you well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be going over the blueprints for refineries next, so look forward to that. And thanks for watching.